Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's DukeNY Career Conversations, a virtual career and professional development series designed to share the stories of interesting, successful Duke alum in the tri-state area and launched in 2020 by the DukeNY board to support alum and members of the DukeNY community looking for professional insights and inspiration. My name is Phil McKenzie. I'm FUQUA 99, and I'm happy to be joined by today's featured guest, Oris Stuart, also FUQUA 89, Chief People and Inclusion Officer at the National Basketball Association, better known as the M.B.A. Welcome, Oris. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great and good to be here with you.
All right. We got a lot to get to. We've had a lot of questions that have already come in. I have a few questions for you, so we're going to jump right into it. So why don't you give us a sense of what made you choose FUQUA for your MBA journey?
Well, it was a while ago, so I've got to go back deep into my memory bank. But seriously, as I was considering business school, a few things were important to me. Number one, it had to be a program that had a great reputation, that had a great program, and most importantly to me, had a great culture. It was a place where I could build relationships, where I could learn in a supportive environment, but also I could feel like I belong, and feel like it was a place that was going to embrace me. And so that's what I found. That's what I found when I visited the campus. That's what I found when I talked to alum who somehow seemed to still be engaged with the institution, and I just got a sense that it was a place that fit me and suited me, and it had a stellar reputation, and I think I made the right choice.
I mean, you definitely made the right choice because you're here with all of us. So we're all benefiting from you having made that choice right now. And, an MBA is something that in recent years, people have questioned the relevance of why even get an MBA at all. And how has an MBA specifically from Duke helped you in your career?
Well, first of all, it credentialed me in a way that few institutions could, right? I mean, if you complete a FUQUA MBA, it's clear that you've gone through a challenging and strong curriculum that prepared you for business and for leadership. It helped me build relationships with folks who ultimately would have a dramatic impact on my life, on the opportunities that I was presented with over time. It continues to give me opportunities just through my ongoing relationship with the university, and I get to root for the basketball team every year. I mean, there's so many layers to the relationship that goes back so many years, but primarily it prepared me, professionally, intellectually. It helped me think about business in a profound way, and to think about business in terms of not only what business could do for me, but how I could contribute to the world through business. I mean, I think if anything, that was one of the differentiating factors, between what I thought FUQUA would offer, and what many of the other institutions I was considering would offer.
At the very beginning, you talked about culture and how important that was for your academic choice when it came to being at Duke. Have you found that culture and that kind of singular importance has played a similar role in your professional trajectory? And if so, tell us a little bit about that.
Listen, it's all about culture, right? It's all about culture. What culture enables, it enables people to do their best work. It enables people to show up and be all that they can be. It creates the environment where people can come together and work together and spend more time in the pursuit of whatever the organizational or individual ambitions are, and less time dealing with friction, less time dealing with the issues that come up whenever you bring people together in a particular environment. And so culture matters. and culture happens. You're always going to have culture. I've got 4 children. I have a wife. There's 6 of us. We have a culture just, in our family. So whenever you bring people together, you're going to have a culture. And just really directly to your question, you're going to have a culture, so you might as well be purposeful about having a culture that facilitates the right kinds of outcomes. And so it is important at an institution like FUQUA. It's absolutely important at an organization like the MBA or any organization that you can affiliate with. And we, as people, as leaders, as individual contributors, whatever our role is, need to be attentive to and focused on culture. And by the way, we need to pick organizations where the culture fits us, fits our personality, fits our style.
Absolutely. And, you said so many great things in there. And I want to pick out the piece about purpose and culture, because oftentimes organizations act as if culture is something that just sort of happens, like it's something that happens to them rather than they having the ability to really drive it. And it sounds like in your seat, you have an ability to drive that culture. Can you tell us a little bit more about that purpose?
Yeah, well, certainly we all, certainly as leaders, are responsible for driving the culture. I mean, that's one of our most important responsibilities in the organization, to define the behaviors that are going to lead to the right outcomes, that are going to lead to rewards, to define the expectations of an organization. And they're very very straightforward elements of culture that I think we can all understand, but I have found that it's more the informal elements of culture that make the most difference. It's the unwritten rules that people don't always understand or can't always easily interpret that really define the culture over time. And so, one of the things that we've been focused on, and I've certainly been focused on during my career, we've been focused on it here at the MBA, is when you bring in someone to the organization, particularly someone of difference, right, where the culture might be a little bit foreign or might have some elements that they might not be as familiar with, that you spend time demystifying it, that you create an environment where they can interpret things based on the culture that they might not naturally get to. Because if you don't do that, they'll feel like an outsider. They're likely spin out, or they certainly won't be able to do their best work. And so again, just re-emphasizing the point, culture matters, culture is important. If you don't manage it, it will manage you, and it will manage, many of the people that you want to be in your organization. It'll manage them out. And so we've got to be very purposeful about creating and defining and sustaining, supporting the culture, that is going to help us do our best work and keep the best people.
Absolutely. Before I answer this next question, I want to remind folks that, as they're listening to the conversation, if they have questions, they can throw those questions into the chat. We've already taken some questions as people registered for the event. So we have a lot of things to get through, but we want to encourage everyone. We know we're all Duke folks, super inquisitive. So throw those questions into the chat as we kind of continue on with the conversation. I want to pick up a little bit more. We all know you got a wicked jump shot, but did you see yourself actually in the league? Like, is this where you pictured yourself kind of sitting in the MBA, kind of driving so much of these decisions?
So by you telling me I had a wicked jump shot, I know you didn't see my old tapes, but I did have a killer crossover though. I will tell you that. I have been working on my jump shot though. Listen, I grew up across the street in West Philadelphia from a schoolyard. I mean,
Born and raised.
Born and raised in West Philly, no doubt, Woodcrest Avenue. But I look out my front window and the first thing I see, 2 basketball courts. So I literally grew up in the schoolyard. I love the game of basketball. I still do. And I love the NBA. And, I grew up on the Philadelphia 76ers. And so I certainly had aspirations like every young guy who loves the game to get into the league. Never would I have imagined when my playing days were over. I played a little ball in college, but never would I have imagined that I'd get to the league. Certainly by a different route, but it is something that I'm really thrilled about.
Now, how has your role shifted now that there's been such a renewed focus by so many organizations, including the MBA, on specifically the issues of inclusion How have you seen that morph over your time?
Well, I'll tell you, I came into the league back in 2015 under a mandate to build a strategy for the league around diversity, equity, and inclusion. The league was very serious about the work. I was certainly supported, quite heavily in terms of building out that strategy and growing it across all of our properties. I'll tell you that over the last 2 years, the attention on this work has increased. First of all, we haven't lost our commitment. We've been committed and we've been focused on it and we've continued to invest in it. But what is, I think, happened that's been quite dramatic is the interest from other individuals inside the league, but even more so outside the league in terms of what have we been doing and what are we focused on and how can they partner with us has been, really incredible. And I'll tell you that more and more people have gotten involved in the work, have wanted to be part of the movement. I mean, we all know the moment that we witnessed back in May of 2020. And, we know how that changed the world and changed our outlook on things for many people. But it also led to, I think, a movement, and so many people have wanted to be a part of it, and the energy in support of the work we had been doing has grown quite dramatically. Just one relevant data point for us at the league. When I started at the league, we had one team that had an executive level lead for diversity and inclusion. We're now at a point where we have 23 of our 30 MBA teams that have someone appointed at that level or are sourcing someone at that level. And so it's just a small example of what's happened over the last few years as the amount of attention and the energy and the focus has intensified.
And when I think about the MBA as someone who's also a fan, but looking at it from a business a business perspective, excuse me. The MBA is sorry. The MBA is truly global. How do you manage that?
Well, first of all, let me just underscore your point. We are a global brand. Just looking at our MBA players, more than 25% of our players on the court were born outside of the U.S. Right, so that's just one example of how our game, shows up in a global context. But we have offices around the world. We're in the midst of our second season for the Basketball Africa League. And so we're incredibly excited about not only the level of basketball that's being played in that league, but the activity that's happening around the game on the continent and the work that we're doing there and the team that's doing that work. But our fans are all over the world. Our fans are all over the world. And by the way, the game of basketball is all over the world, and it can be played whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever your station in life. And so when I think about NBA and I think about basketball and I think about global, I really reflect on the fact that the game of basketball, like other sports and certain other things, but I'm just going to focus on the game of basketball, has the ability to bring people together in a unique way. And so when I think about global, it's how can we grow this game? How can we make sure this game is accessible, whether as a pursuit or as something that you have rooting interest in? How can we make sure this shows up at every corner of this earth? And that's really that's our ambition, not to be global for global's sake, but to make sure the game is
absolutely
is everywhere and accessible to everyone.
And my choking notwithstanding,
Oh, good.
I love that answer because it really captures the diversity within diversity, right? When you're dealing with a property that is in many countries, you have players now from many parts of the world, coaching staffs have changed. You're trying to explain things through a national lens that also have global implications.
No doubt.
So how do you guys pull all that together to have it make sense and translate in all of those different markets all around the world?
I'll say there are two things. One is we have to, as business people, as leaders, as practitioners, we have to have a global mindset. We have to have an inclusive mindset. We can't assume that whatever our professional and personal experiences are, that they are sufficient to really understand the needs, the ambitions, the expectations of folks around the world. And so we have to have an open mindset to be able to identify opportunities or recognize them, to recognize insights that come from other places that we might not be so familiar with, to then in turn be able to respond to those opportunities. So it really does start with an open mindset. And then beyond that, I think it's essential that we have people that represent those communities in our organizations making the key decisions. So not only having them in, not only having the global marketplace and our global fan base represented in the organization, but represented at the level where decisions are made and where strategies are set. And so I think having an open mindset, leaning into what it truly means to be global, recognizing that we can't just take those things that have worked for us here, worked for us up until now, and drop them in other places. We've got to be culturally relevant. We've got to be culturally agile, and in making sure our decisions are informed by people that understand, that have lived in those places, that represent, those places in the interest of the fans we're trying to serve. I mean, I think those two things together really will sustain us and really help us continue to grow.
Absolutely. I'm gonna use the time that we have left to start to pull some of the questions that we've already received from the audience as well as from the chat. So I'm going to start with the chat first. And Mammy, thanks for the question. What are some specific characteristics of both Duke and MBA culture that was most attractive to you? And are there any similarities in the cultures of these two organizations that you think have made them successful?
Well, it might sound cliche, but I'll just have to use the word team. I just have to use the word team. At Duke, we had Team FUQUA, and it is a concept, but it is real. Team FUQUA is what attracted me to your first question. It's what attracted me there because I was influenced by the fact that I was meeting alumni that were still invested in the institution, were still coming back, encouraging me to attend. And so that just told me there was something rich there, that people were connecting to it, they were connecting to each other, and that it was truly a team environment, even more so than it was about individual success and individual pursuit. So that was certainly something I experienced, and I believe is central to the FUQUA DNA and the Duke DNA more broadly. And then certainly that's what we're about at the MBA. We play a team game. We are an organization built up of teams that work together across purposes and across disciplines. And I think one of the things that our employees celebrate is the collaborative environment here. I just reflect on recent employee sentiment that we just received in terms of results from a recent survey. Our employees said one of the things they appreciate most about the MBA is the collaborative environment. So I'll stick with that. It is about being a team, being a part of a team, and leveraging the energy and creativity and spirit of a team to have uncommon outcomes and uncommon success.
Absolutely. Here's another question that was submitted through the registration. For companies that are interested in starting an inclusion and diversity program, what are some things that they should be aware of when they're starting to do that kind of work? And how do you help companies kind of stay focused on the talent development as part of that process?
Well, first of all, diversity, equity, inclusion, they mean lots of different things to lots of different people, or to different people. I think, and I've always believed, it's essential, particularly when you're starting this work, to define your purpose around DE&I, diversity, equity, inclusion, in the context of who you are and what you're trying to be as an organization. Not just diversity, equity, inclusion for diversity's sake, but as an organization. My mission is, my ambitions are, my organizational objectives are. Frame your strategy and your efforts in the context of diversity, equity, and inclusion, enabling or accelerating those objectives, or your ability to get to those objectives, versus having it be something that's standalone. Because if it is not integrated, into the core mission, the core objectives of the organization, it'll fall of its own weight. It just will. And you're specifically to your point about talent development, it is necessarily going to be a part of any effective diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. And you've got to think about your people. So often we focus on attracting new and more diverse people into the organization. That's important. But we've got to keep focusing on keeping the people that we have, and not only keeping them, but making sure they are developing, they're advancing, and that they are believing and belonging in the organization. So build a strategy around diversity that's connected to your business strategy. Make it one and the same. Don't make it something different, something extra. And make sure as you're focused on your talent and acquiring new talent, that you're supporting the talent that's already there.
Now we have another great question that comes from the chat. Thanks, Kat, for this question. Are there any secrets to determine if an organization has a culture that is a good fit, especially for those organizations that their culture might not be as visible as the one that the MBA has, beyond maybe some of the Glassdoor interview questions, things like that? Any other hacks for people who can suss out what a culture might be like?
Yeah, listen, if you're, when you're in an interview, talking to an organization, let's say you gotten to that point and you're in that phase of assessing culture, you got to be prepared to ask some tough questions. You're certainly trying to represent your best self, but you got to challenge the people you're interviewing with in the organization to make sure they're giving you answers to your question, things that are most important to you. Find out, how do people get along? How do they socialize? How does work get done? How do they handle conflict? You really want to try to have a real sense of the kind of organization that you're going to walk into. You want to maybe give some examples of challenges that you've seen in other organizations, that you've experienced in other organizations, and pose that challenge as part of a conversation with the representative and ask them, how would the organization deal with this? I mean, I think that's, you got to really demystify, I used that term before, the culture. While you're on the outside looking in, and talk to people that they put in front of you. But with a tool like LinkedIn, you can find people that have perspective and experience that they might not be putting in front of you. Reach out to them, get a diverse set of inputs on what the organization is, and look for patterns and trust the patterns. When you hear the same thing over and over again, believe it. It's probably true, whether that's good or bad. And then make your assessment that way. I just can't emphasize enough how important it is to end up in a place where you can do your best work. That's the only way it's sustainable. And if you're in a place that provides you with the right culture, where you feel like you belong, where you feel like the work you're doing matters, you're going to do your best work. You're unstoppable.
Absolutely. I want to jump to another question that just came into the chat, and it can be for any league, but we're going to obviously focus it on the MBA. Do you feel that the challenges that are faced by the league and the game themselves has an opportunity to either lose or gain based on the business decisions that are happening? Like, how do those two things manage? I'm going to add a little editorial to the question. We've lived in a world where famously people were kind of like, shut up and play, talking to someone like LeBron James, right? So how does the NBA manage that kind of tension where some fans might not want to hear from players, or might not want to hear about the social stands that the NBA is engaged in? How do you manage that?
I don't think there's much of a gap between our true fans, our core fans, even our casual fans who love the game, love the way it's played, love the product, and the positions our players take, the positions we take as a league. I think we are, in everything we do, trying to be true to the game. A game that is inclusive, right? A game that creates opportunity for everyone to participate. I just think that's what the game does, and that's who we're trying to be. It's a game that brings people together, as I said earlier. And so I think our fans recognize that when our players are speaking out, when they're taking positions, when we as a league, are representing our values in certain ways, that it's consistent with that. It's consistent with that belief in the power of basketball, and so just don't think there's that much gap between between that. And we certainly hear from individuals and communities that don't agree with everything we do or everything we say, but that's not nearly as important, I think, is us being true to what we think the game is all about. And I think that has served us well, and I think it'll continue to serve us well.
That question kind of looks forward. We got a question from Patricia that looks a little bit backwards, which is, what advice would you have given your younger self, so not that much far away, about management, building culture, and or building a team?
Well, I have come to truly understand that the power is in relationships. It's in the quality, the depth, and the flavor and the energy that you get in building trusting relationships. And I kind of always knew that. It's certainly something that was part of my early experiences, but I don't know that I appreciated that as much then as I do now. So my counsel to my younger self, my counsel to anyone who is early in their career or any point in their career, is lean into relationships. Find those connecting points. You can, in a few minutes of conversation with anyone, anywhere, find points of affinity and alignment and connection that help you create capital to leverage and work through differences. And that's to me what it's all about. And I'll just say this, I've had a lot of fortune in my career. I've had some incredible opportunities, including the one that I'm working in now. And I think 4, if not the last 5 roles I've had, came through a relationship. These are roles that I didn't know existed, roles I didn't know I wanted, but because of the strength of relationships, people I built relationships with over time, trusting relationships, being a sponsor for me, knowing my skills, representing me in rooms I wasn't in, those opportunities were created. And so, I would even as my younger self, I would have leaned even more heavily in getting to know people, particularly people of difference. Like just, it's so easy to align with the people that are in your natural circle, in your natural networks. I think I would have, as my younger self, I would have been even more purposeful about expanding my network, with people who are different. So, I'm not complaining so much, but I could have done more, and I encourage, those of you earlier in your careers to definitely pursue relationships, particularly, where there are people of difference.
Absolutely. I think we don't know what we don't know, and all of this is a journey, and we learn as we go through. Yourself starting in '89, my class in '99. We're constantly kind of going through these process. We're right at 6, but I don't care. I'm going to ask you one more question. This is actually the most crucial question that I've been waiting to ask you. All right, you ready?
No, not really, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, you don't got no choice. You're starting a team with all-time great Sixers players. Who's your first pick? Dr. J or Allen Iverson?
Oh, come on. That's not even close. I thought
I was making it close.
I thought you were going to throw me a tough one.
I thought that was tough. All right. Which one?
Well, I'm going to start with Julius Erving, but my second pick is AI. No doubt. Those are my 2. But listen, you're talking about all-time greats, not only of the Philadelphia Sixers, but of the NBA. But I grew up on the doctor. So, I mean, I can't,
Got to start with Dr. J.
I can't go any other way.
All right, brother. Well, I'm going to thank you for being a part of this. It's awesome to have spent this time with you. I want to thank everybody for attending the DukeNY Career Conversations. These conversations air monthly on the 3rd Wednesday of every month, and we hope that you'll join us again. I'm going to give you a sneak preview next month, so circle your calendars. On Wednesday, April 20th, we're going to be joined by Diana Proper de Calion. She's Duke 84, Managing Director of Cran Amir. And this is going to be a focus on impact investment. impact investing rather. And she's going to be interviewed by Danelle Beard, O3, who's a founder and CEO. So this is a power-packed group from Block Power, a climate tech smart buildings platform. So that's going to be our April Duke career conversation. So I always end this by saying everybody on this call, everybody in this room, they could have been anywhere, but they choose to spend this time with us. And I appreciate it. I appreciate you, brother. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Anytime. Take good care.
All right. Take care, everybody.
All right.